So happy that you showed up and joined in to listen and take part of my podcast. It's called You're Probably Right, where everything is right to somebody, and sometimes the left is right and sometimes the right is wrong. Yeah, that didn't really work too well, but whatever. All right, we're going to get into it. How you doing, y'all? This is You're Probably Right podcast. I am your host, MCM, and today is January 27th, 2022. Thursday, to be exact. Okay, you know what I'm going to do today for you guys? I'm going to do the next 10 questions first. So if you don't want to hear my ramblings later about anger, and how to deal with anger, or how some of us deal with anger, I guess you can tune out after the questions are done. So we're gonna get right into it. How you like that? See, I give you what you want. You know what I mean? You know, it's funny enough. I used to say that on my. I used to DJ. I was an online DJ. Matter of fact, some of my stuff's still online on SoundCloud and Mixcloud. And one more place. And actually the best stuff I used to have was on YouTube. But of course they started to have those issues with licensing. And I would go through about 4 hours of putting things together and then actually doing the mix for say an hour and 20. Cause you know, I used to work out hard with the cardio and I wanted to have music that was steady state, but I would set it to different miles per hour. So say if you were a jogger and you like to jog on the treadmill, say at like 5.5 or 6.5, I would literally make the whole mix songs that I could mix perfectly at 6.5 miles per hour, which many people told me was working for them because it's like it gets your heart at that beat, you're running at that beat, and it just does some like miraculous things to your fitness. But unfortunately, I could never get enough non-copyright music, or good enough non-copyright music to mix without being flagged, or you know, they would leave my stuff up for 2 months and then rip it all down, and I was getting thousands and thousands of views, and I was back when 500,000 views was a lot, and I used to get a lot of subscribers because of it, and people telling me that they love it and they're going to use it at their gyms and such. But I don't think that's ever going to change. I don't see it in the near future or whatever it is. But it is what it is.
Maybe your stupid opinions aren't right. And like, are you so sure your life is going so much the way you want it to go, and you're such a bloody paragon of virtue, and the light is shining out every orifice, and everyone who disabuses you of your notions is evil?
So anyhow, let's get to it. First question. It's really question number 21, but actually, is it number 21? Let's see. I had those. Okay, yeah. Okay, here we go. So, here's a question. Can illiterates be given driving lessons? Driving lessons. Or should they be given a driver's license, really? My answer is, well, yeah, you could technically give them the lessons, but should somebody who is illiterate be given a driving license? I say, honestly, no. I don't know where there might be a gray area, but the bottom line is you need to be able to read signs, and it's not, say, the 1970s or 80s where, you know, I mean, you might be able to get away with some stuff. I mean, if they know the numbers, they might know get off at Route 367 and blah, blah, blah. So they don't know the Gardner Expressway or whatever it is in Toronto, whatever it is. They can't read it. But they do have numbers on the exit signs and stuff like that. But you actually have to know street signs. I mean, I understand that they might be able to understand do not enter or one way, like arrows and stuff like that. But there are actual signage that tells you, you know, where you're going or if you're going down the wrong way. And now that were in the 2000s, where they actually changed the messages on the digital signage on the highways, there's absolutely no way I think that somebody who can't read should be on the roads. Now, I'm sure that there could be some kind of school of thought that would make it make sense. And if you think so, well, show this is. So if you think they could, you're probably right. And you could probably give me an argument as to it. But as far as I can see, if you can't read, honestly, with my loved ones on the road, I can't see any world where I would want somebody who can't read to be, sorry about the candy guys, is on the road and they can't read. Straight up. Okay, next question. Retirement homes, pros and cons. So I guess this person, they were thinking about, their future and living in a retirement home or sending one of their parents. And I'm going to keep it really clear and straight for you guys. I happen to be somebody who knows a little bit about it. As a kid growing up, my mom worked at a retirement home. And to tell you the truth, the old people used to creep me out. And I guess they were so lonely, they'd always reach out and try to touch you and just, hey, whatever. And I was scared to death. I wasn't around my grandparents at all. My grandparents were in another country, and the only interactions I had with like 85-year-olds were the people at my mom's workplace. And sometimes, for whatever reason, I'd have to show up to, maybe somebody would drop me off and I'd have to go give her something at work, or maybe we were picking her up, so I had to go call her, and I had to walk through the main level, get down the stairs, and all this kind of stuff. And there'd usually be a few older people, obviously seniors, sitting in their wheelchairs in the hallways, just close enough to touch you or freak you out. And all they wanted to do was talk. Now that I'm older, I understand that. But just telling you my little situation with it, or my experience. But knowing that I would say the pros for sure. If you have a spouse that cannot take care of you anymore, or let's say you don't have a spouse, or you have enough money to get into, say, an upper crust kind of retirement home where there's a lot of activities, and boredom is one of your things, and you need to be around people your own age that remember things that you remember and have the same interests and stuff like that, then I would say a retirement home is probably a good place for you, especially if you don't want to be a burden. And I used to hear older people say that. They'd say, when I get old and I can't take care of myself, I have no issue with my family putting me in a senior's home or a retirement home. And I always had, I never really understood people's thought. I mean, I'm getting to that point, I suppose, now, where I could understand it. But coming from a family who we took care of my father until he was 81 and he passed away of Parkinson's, we did everything for that man. And maybe my sisters would do a little bit of here, a little bit there, feeding, peri-care, whatever it is. And then, sometimes they needed to move him from the hospital bed, which we had in the house, to the other bed, and I was the only person that could lift him properly without injuring him or injuring myself. And I could do that very easily, and we took care of him. He didn't even get one bed sore. And I'm telling you, if you have any experience with a family member who is bedridden, can't speak anymore eventually, and for them not to end up with even one bed sore on their body, that is a very huge feat, I would say. So I would love it if maybe my kids could take care of me when I was that old. But now that when I'm thinking about it as I do get older, I'm like, if I could be in a place where I have some camaraderie, hopefully in a Christian retirement home, where, I could gather together again with like-minded people and enjoy my senility in my senior days with people who are friendly and such. Yeah, I would like to do it. So I would honestly say there's a lot of pros to it. You're not a burden, and hopefully you've amounted enough money in your bank account, or with you have a good insurance or a good retirement plan where your needs are properly taken care of in a good retirement home, a reputable retirement home, licensed retirement home. Like, there's so many things that you'd have to make sure that this retirement home has, because when you put yourself in there, we don't know how long we're going to be able to really take care of our affairs properly. And if you put your hands into the wrong people, which I guess I would switch over to the cons, is you might be conned by some cons. So that would be definitely the negatives, is that there's a lot of people. And again, from my experience, hearing my mom talk about some of the staff that used to work where she worked, not everybody who works in healthcare or in a senior's home. Sorry, I got candy in my mouth. I know it's kind of rude. Me by the home. Not everybody who's working in those type of environments actually care to take care of people. A lot of people who work there, to be honest, are there for a good, decent paycheck. Just like education. If I'm obviously, we're not all old enough to know about seniors homes, and your parents maybe didn't work in a seniors home, so you maybe didn't understand the little idiosyncrasies, little situations, the nuance of working there or living there, or hearing what people do to people who live in those places. You have to understand that, just like school, again, not everybody who teaches actually likes children. So we've all had our ups and downs, even in the education system, where we know there were certain teachers that literally let you know as a student that they don't like children. And not only ones that couldn't stand the kids that were little jerks or were difficult to get along with, or whatever the issue is, or were a little bit hyperactive, but also there were those teachers who literally behaved like they didn't like children, and they had no business anywhere around children. Some of them didn't even have children, or some of them had children. They loved their children, but they couldn't stand anybody else's, and they had no business in education. So that would definitely be a con. And again, if you're at a seniors home, and one thing I can say again is the money aspect. If you don't have a lot of money, then the chances are you're going to be in a subpar location where your needs are probably not going to be met properly, or there will not be enough stimulation, mental stimulations, or physical exercise, or maybe outings or crafts or stuff to keep you nimble and your brain working. Then I could see that would be a horrible existence. But again, the negatives, again, with how we went through this whole COVID-19 situation, where they just locked off the doors and said nobody can come in. We had seniors who haven't up until now seen their family members, or we had seniors who passed away because they locked the doors and there were no visitors allowed. The isolation aspect. Maybe you go in there with 3 people or 3 people that are like-minded, and they pass away, and you're still there, and there's no place for you to come out to. So you might regret your decision at that point. So there are a lot of pros and cons. I'll tell you honestly, my school of thought with it is, if your family can take care of you like you took care of them, if you have a family, then I would see it best for you to do in-home. Now, I understand some parents, some seniors need like 24/7 care, and it's not easy to afford somebody to come in and be a live-in, or even stall you off on the times that you have to go to work and come back. It's hard to orchestrate that whole situation. But anyhow that you are able to take care of your senior, I would honestly, from somebody who has had now both my parents, my mom's going to be 80 this year, My father lived to 81, so I had my parents for a long time, both married all my life until my father passed away in '05. If you can figure it out, even if you had parents that weren't the greatest parents, I think one of the most wonderful things you could do, and it's scriptural for those of you hopefully who are listening are Christians. It says, honor your mother and your father, so the days of your life can be long upon this earth. And I'm not saying every good kid is going to live to 95, but I just believe that the blessings are over your life one way or the other if you take care of your parents, if you honor your parents. Not be your parents' slave or your whipping boy or your pincushion or your stool to stand on, but honor your parents, even into senility, especially into senility and old age and Alzheimer's and dementia. Those things seem so prevalent. I honestly, it has shocked me how much of that stuff I've seen in my own family. And sadly enough, a lot of my older generation seem to have got all these kinds of sicknesses within the last, say, 8 to 10 years, and a lot of them at the same time. It's like, I honestly know in my older generation, I'm not gonna tell you exactly who, but there's at least 4 of my family members with a touch of the same kind of neurological disorder in their senility or their senior years, and they basically have no contact with each other because they're all gone, basically. So anyhow, that's my 2 cents. It's a long answer, but this is a podcast, and I know that you like to hang out with me and listen to me, so I'm giving you my 2 cents on the situation. I'm just gonna fly past it because that is a touchy area for a lot of people, and I guess I happen to be one of those people. Now let's see. Democracy versus monarchy. Now, I guess this would be democracy in the United States and maybe versus the monarchy in Canada here, where I mean, it's not a true monarchy. We do have a prime minister, but I'd like both. If you can have a little bit of both, which I think we kind of have a little bit here. We do, elect our officials, and we do state our, say our piece, and we do vote and all that. And I believe that, the monarchy, it's like I can become king, and the only reason why I'm king is because my father was king, kind of thing. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be able set to rule or fit to rule over a whole country of people. The good thing about it, again, is that God knows and allows those to be over the people who are in control, even if it is a monarchy. Now, somebody might argue the dark ages or the Middle Ages, or when they were like killing Christians and doing all kinds of manner of evil. God knew, honestly, that those things were going to happen, and he still had his people, his elect. He's a sovereign God. And yes, throughout history, there's been a lot of evil monarchies. There's been a lot of evil dictatorships, and a lot of people have suffered. But what I would say, and I mean, I guess I didn't really answer it, but I think I would like them. I think as a regular, individual, I think I would probably go for a democracy, because you get to have your say. And I guess if things aren't going the way that you like as an individual, you can vote. But the only thing with that is, if you're in a secular society, like, most of us are, then it's not like your president or your prime minister or whatever is going to open the Bible and say, thou shalt not kill. Okay, no abortion. That's not going to happen. Or it's not like they're going to open the Bible and say, okay, this kind of lifestyle isn't right, because it says that man should not lie with a man like he does with a woman, and such, or you know what I mean? Like, I believe general basis for most of or pretty much all the issues that we have in society right now are answered in the scriptures. But are we going to have are we going to be able to elect a person who is going to open the Bible and use it as their means to figure out what should be done in most situations? And the answer is no. You do have those people who will play on, or on the heartstrings of their citizens to, if you know that more than half of your constituents, your public, or your voters are your religion or a certain religion, you might lean towards catering to that part of the population just to get the votes. Now, not to say that all politicians are dishonest, but the majority of them do tell people what they want to hear, and 85% of the time, I can't say that they really do half of what they say they're going to do if they get elected. So that's my view on it, and I guess I can't really weigh on it like if I'm like a political science major or a history major. But I mean, I would say there's pros and cons of both. But I mean, again, if you look through the scriptures and you look at the monarchies, you look at like King Saul, for instance, over Israel, it didn't work out too well. You can look at King David and look at even though God said he was a man after God's own heart, he's the apple of God's eye, he still committed horrible sins where we would all cancel that guy in this day and age, or in most ages, even though he wrote all the Psalms and he was a wonderful shepherd. He had some horrible times in the middle. So none are perfect, I guess. The only monarchy that I like is the monarchy of King Jesus. Put it that way. He is soon coming king. Okay, next question. Which one is more important, creativity or knowledge? For me, I thought I answered this last time. I guess I didn't. Let's see. No, I didn't. Well, I think I did. But I would honestly take wisdom over it. And I'm pretty sure I think that's what I said last time if I had actually done this before. But I'm still on that. I would say wisdom for sure, even though it's not one of the choices. Creativity is always good, and I guess I lean towards more of a creator or a creative personality where even if I don't know a lot about something, I can sure figure out something. So I may not have the right tools, kind of like that saying where a man worth his salt, or his weight in salt, or whatever it is, can do anything with a wrench, duct tape, and pliers, or something like that, or whatever it is, or duct tape and pliers. There's a lot of things that I've had to make do with. I mean, for instance, like creativity. Now, I guess it wouldn't really come against knowledge, but there was times when I had to do a lot of the heavy lifting by myself in a home full of women who were ill or weren't able, or I wouldn't even ask, in a sense, to help me with certain liftings or certain dirty jobs that I just honestly, I felt, as I was growing up, I just, to not have my sisters try to break their back to help me carry a fridge or whatever it is. And I had to figure it out. And I would get really creative. I would grab my skateboard and I would get the washing machine and I would roll it up to the stairs. Then I would get a sheet and I would, use what I learned with Newton's laws and slide and planes and objects in motion tend to stay in motion, and, and just get creative with the tools that I would use to get to, a means to an end. And sometimes knowledge isn't it. Like, you'll have people know-it-alls and they can't really put things together. I know people who are very smart, book smart, but they have no creativity. So therefore, a lot of the really difficult things in life they're unable to do for themselves or anybody else. So I would say creativity over knowledge for me is more important. Next question. Who serves the country most? Teachers or soldiers? I honestly say in this day and age, I would say teachers. I mean, how many, at least for Canada, how many soldiers have really had to do a lot of soldiering, like a lot of fighting? I mean, I know that Canada is known as peacekeepers, but there hasn't been much fighting. Now, if we were in a war-torn country and I needed somebody to fight for the good of their fellow man, then obviously I would really need soldiers, but you would hope that those soldiers were taught to soldier, otherwise they're pretty much useless. They're just a bunch of angry men and probably going to cut down each other at some point. So honestly, I would say teachers are definitely worth more to society and they serve the country more, but soldiers are obviously important. And I don't know if it was a disparity in disparity in paychecks why somebody's asking that question, but they're definitely both important. But soldiers need to be taught, and teachers don't necessarily have to soldier. I mean, maybe you have to soldier through a day, but you know what I mean. I would say honestly, teachers are definitely, they serve the country more, just because. Okay, next question. Should physical education be made compulsory in schools? 100%. And from someone who loved gym, physical education, I enjoyed it. So I would sound biased in that way, but honestly, with the amount of obesity, childhood obesity, laziness, kids unable to work and sit down in classrooms because they have all this energy to expel, just fitness needs to be risen. And I think the level of fitness needs to be risen and the importance of fitness needs to be raised. And I can't tell you how I know, but I know of through this COVID time, obviously there's a lot of kids who gained a lot of weight, a lot of kids who were able to do the running around in gym a little bit, but when it came to writing and speaking about fitness, they weren't very apt and they weren't very good at doing it either. Some of them that I saw couldn't even tell you why physical education was important. And I know that getting 97, which a lot of us are just not capable of doing in functions in math or calculus or physics or chemistry in grade 12, I think there should be a component of physical education that should be held to a higher standard. And I think that's the reason why there is so much obesity, or not even obesity. There's different sicknesses that come about from not enough physical fitness in life. And I think there should be some more, it shouldn't be looked down upon. And sadly, culturally, for whatever reason, these things happen and people don't look at it as anything. As far as I don't even know what just plugged out just now. Hopefully my thing is still recording. I think it should be compulsory. Now, I know it is up until I think grade 9, or you have to have at least 1 credit here in Canada, but I think it needs to be required throughout, or at least 2 or 3, at least 1 as a junior, sophomore, and senior or something. Or at least if they don't, if you don't want them to have them jumping around, at least by grade 12, students should have to be able to either teach it, model it, explain it, beyond just having gym and health half of the year. But that's just my 2 cents on it. And if you don't agree, you're probably right. But I think you're probably wrong. All right, here we go. Effects of video games on well-being. Well, with video games, the better and more advanced they get and simpler they are to use, the more addictive they become. And I think somebody said somewhere that the high that people get from video games is not unlike drugs. So, and they had certain games, I think, what was it called? Was it Fortnite? Something like that. Some game where there was no pause button. So, I mean, it's cool in one sense that, being a kid from the 80s, in 90s, there was games that the guy was just about to plug you. You could just pause the game. You'd freak out and tick off your friend. but there you could pause it, and when you unpause it, sometimes if that stray bullet was coming towards your head, or that shot was going in, for some other reason, it's like the game would get ticked off that you paused it, and it would rim out or something, and the person would be like so angry, saying, man, if you didn't press that button, it was going straight in. And you know they're probably right, but you had to do what you had to do. But now they have these games where you can't pause, so I guess it's more lifelike. Like, I mean, like, you're learning a soldiering game or whatever it is, and you're thugging it out on the battlefield, and the guy's about to plunge a whatever into you or something, and you can't just press pause. Like, life goes on, it's gonna have to happen. But the problem with it is you have kids and adults not leaving their system, kind of like the whole epidemic with supposedly the slot machines and stuff, and people pulling on a slot machine for like 5 hours and knowing that the next quarter could be the one, but they knew that if they left and went to the washroom, that somebody could just throw their quarter in and pull it and win the $30,000 or whatever it is. So they just wouldn't leave. So they'd throw on the pens and just wet themselves just to make sure that they were in for the big payoff. So you can just imagine how much effects just those couple scenarios that I brought up would have on people's well-being. Not to mention, yes, there is a level of desensitizing to violence if you're playing a Valorant or what's it called, Grand Theft Auto or whatever it is, and you have a kid I know it's cartoon characters, but you're still seeing these images in your head, and I believe that it does desensitize you to a level to actually seeing violence. I mean, if you remember as a child, when you first saw certain things, it's like it does put it into your brain, like your recorder records all those images. There are certain things that you've seen one time, and after that it didn't have the same effect. But the first time you saw certain things, it certainly had an effect on you. So I believe that it would definitely have a negative effect on your mental. I mean, here's one thing I can tell you. I used to play a game, and it was called GT. It was called Gran Turismo. It was called GT, but it was a different GT. It wasn't Grand Theft. And you used to drive all these exotic fast cars, and you could soup them up, even a Honda Civic. You'd have a Honda Civic, and before you knew it, when you were fixing that car up, you can get it to go about 700 horsepower, which is ridiculous considering a Honda Civic at that time probably came stock with about 130 horsepower. So, yeah, I would say I used to have to open the windows after driving that thing for maybe 2-3 hours because it would start giving me car sickness. So, next question. We got 3 more. Are celebrities treated unfairly by the media? I would say yes. Simply yes. Now, the question is it fair? I mean, it is what it is, really. I mean, you kind of sign up for it, but the problem is the average person has no clue what they're actually signing up for when they're in the media, the celebrity media. The people who hound them down, and you got the paparazzi chasing Princess Di in a car, and you got guys on motorbike chasing you down because you're Kanye West, and cameras in your face, and you're getting angry, and they don't know that you just hit your knee on a chair in the house, and you came outside and you're already ticked off, and there's flashing bulbs in your face, and the lights are really bright because they have to get these beautiful pictures, and yeah, your tooth could be in the wrong spot, and life is happening to you. You're still a person, and people in the media will get you'll get irritated. You'll be on the private so-called island, and you really didn't want to be seen. Not the people who are putting themselves out there, but the ones that are actually hiding. They just want to be alone. Are they treated unfairly? For sure. They're hounded. And again, you do sign up for it. We all know what these people go through in a sense from the outside, but when you're called Wacko Jacko, you're Michael Jackson, and you have to sleep in a hyperbaric chamber, and you have to take medication every day of your life just so you can sleep for 7 hours. You're Russell Westbrook and you're playing erratic like you always have, but you're on a good team now, so they don't need you to do everything, but you're still trying to do everything because that's what you've been used to for the past 13 or 15 years, or whatever the case is, or how many years he's been in the NBA. And not 13, 15, I think it's more like 9 years, whatever it is. But like I said, if you know about basketball, you know that Russell Westbrook was always doing everything, and he'd be playing with these low-level teams, and he'd be averaging his triple-double, or he'll be getting 32 points a night, and he'll squeak out some games, and he was the hero. But then after a while, what we found out about Russell is that if you have 3 or 4 other stars on your team, you're not needed to go at 120 miles per hour the whole game, put up 50 shots, and like it was excusable before. But now that you could start off a game and miss your first 9 shots and give away the ball 4 or 5 times, because there's other good players on the team, you may not ever get into a rhythm because you have all these amazing players beside you. And what happens in the media, he's called Russell, and that's the reason why I'm messing with his name, is because it's like, even in my psyche, it's now Russell Westbrook, and it's very disrespectful. And you think about this guy, he has to go home to his family. Do you think that he really deserves people talking about him the way they talk about him, and he's just an athlete? Yes, he's making an obscene amount of money, but that's what the job pays. If you have 50 to 60,000 people willing to pay their hundreds and hundreds of dollars, sometimes thousands of dollars, to see you in one night, then of course your paychecks are going to be that high. You have merchandise bringing in money. You got all kinds of stuff bringing in money. So it pays that much. Like, would you say no media, treat these people really well and give them $70,000 a year or something? Like, obviously these people are getting paid more than doctors, life-saving doctors and teachers. Something's off in our society. But at the same time, if you're famous, I don't believe that it should be allowed that you can be abused by the media, especially if it's unwarranted. There's people honestly doing a job in the media, but they're not asking for trouble. They're not asking for the media to run them down with pictures and questions and obscene pictures made of them and all kinds of stuff. Thanks to Photoshop, and I mean, Photoshop's an amazing program, but it really can do some really horrible, scary things to people. And I mean, it's not necessarily the program again, it's people. And it's what the government's allowed. There's no, slander laws, really. There's no, it's like you can do anything to anybody. Look how, if it can happen to the president, just think about, let's just say, if you want to even say that President Trump was an idiot, or if you want to say that Prime Minister Trudeau is, he's a degenerate, or he's not able to do the office of Prime Minister, whatever it is you want to say. But the stuff that they print about these guys, they are people. And they might be honestly making bad choices in many respects. But like the smear campaign that went on against President Trump there's no precedent for that. There's nobody who's ever had to deal with that, ever, period. You can't tell me the person in any country, but it was allowed because he was seen as an idiot, and he was seen as vulgar, and he was seen as a womanizer, and he was seen as a selfish person, and there's so many things, so it was okay. But to tell you the truth, that stuff shouldn't be allowed. The media shouldn't be allowed to literally destroy people because they do not align with the narrative or the popular narrative. And obviously you can see my voice is a little more strong than that, because I really believe that you shouldn't be allowed to try to literally destroy people. You shouldn't be allowed to bully people just because. All right, where are we now? Number 9. The impact of news channels on society. And there you go. It kind of goes right in there. The impact, well, we know what CNN does. We know what Fox does. we know what the little small outlets that aren't so small, like what's it, Al Jazeera? I think I'm saying it wrong, but I think you probably know what I'm talking about. But these news networks and channels, even YouTube channels like the Young Turks, like they're big enough now where their narrative gets out there and it affects society. I mean, look at people trying to shut down Joe Rogan now. He was on with Jordan Peterson the other day, and just the fact that they both believe that, COVID is a hoax, or, Joe Rogan said that he had it. And then I think it was his Neil, I can't remember his name is, but there's a singer who said, what is it, Neil? That's not Neil Diamond. Anyway, he was saying that he didn't want his music on Spotify anymore. You can look it up. So he literally asked them, or told them, either you take off Joe Rogan or take off my music. And they took his music off. I mean, they have $100 million deal with Joe Rogan, so one of you gotta go. We've heard your music, bud. So they gave him the boot, but yeah, just news. And I mean, you may say that Joe Rogan's news is sensationalized or it's satire or whatever you want to say, but the bottom line is his point of views are getting out there and they are affecting society. People are literally deciding whether they're going to get a vaccine based on the information that they're receiving from Joe Rogan's show and the experts and so-called experts and the comedians that come on his show. And yeah, so it's a huge impact. Does it need to be policed? To a certain extent. But I will also say, I don't believe that people should be 100% silenced, like how Trump was basically silenced. It's never happened in society, ever. If we remember him for nothing, we are going to remember Donald Trump for being literally taken off Facebook, taken off YouTube, taken off Instagram, kicked out of public office, charged with all kinds of inciting yada yada on the Capitol and whatever it is, but they seriously shut him down. And this was a guy that was voted in, I think 55 to 60% of the population actually voted him in. And even if some of that shifted, there are still a better part of society that liked him or wanted him around, and they just said, no, sorry, bye-bye. And he was a rich man. He was a powerful man. He was a guy who had a television show, showed up in various movies, and they just said, nope, shut him down. Compulsory yoga in schools. This is going to be easy. For me, there's no pros and cons. I would say leave it at the physical education and the exercise. But when you get into something that is yoga and it has a yogi and it has people who practice certain religions that are forcing this upon other people, I mean, listen, society took out praying in church. In schools, they took out the Lord's Prayer. They took out so many things that had anything to do with Christianity. So you're asking the wrong dude. If you think that yoga should be mandatory in schools, I'll say no way. And again, not because they took out the Christian parts or Christian aspects of schools, but the fact that it is new age, secular, humanist. It's basically from Eastern religions, and although you can meditate, but not that type of meditation. So that's my viewpoint, and I am a man, and I'll give you my 2 cents on a topic. And I know a lot of you maybe agree with how society is run, and they have the kind of the groupthink kind of going on. But for me personally, I say no yoga, especially because it has religious undertones of new age. I can't even think of the word right now what that type of culture is called, but I would say honestly yoga shouldn't be compulsory in school, but physical fitness for sure. All right, I'm actually not gonna go into I was gonna do a little teaching on anger, and it was by R.C. Sproul. I was actually going to read it and give you my little 2 cents on it, but because it's already been a long show already, 43 minutes, I think that these questions will suffice for today, and I'm going to cover them up so I know not to go over them the next time. And I'm going to tell you, I really, really, really appreciate you checking me out today. I'm going to probably do a show a week. I was really throwing them out there for a second. I can't say for sure. I got all kinds of stuff going on. I'm going to try and consolidate some of the stuff that I had. I have about 3 or 4 channels on YouTube, and there were teachings and different lessons and stuff like that I have. I may start trying to compile them to put them up here alongside of some of my material. But that's going to be it for today, and I just really appreciate you coming out and listening, and take care.